Danny Gray, he got basically redshirted last year, but you can't write off Niners young players, especially on offense, who redshirt, because Kyle Shanahan seems to want to do that with young players. They got to learn the system anyway, and we've seen a lot of second-year players break out with the 49ers recently. So Danny Gray in particular, like, what are you expecting out of him in his second season?
More strength, better, just better play strength, has his feet under him a little bit more. He's got the speed and he's got the hands, he's got the confidence. It's just a little bit more strength, a little bit more awareness, a little bit more knowledge, a little bit better in a little bit better rhythm with the quarterback, whether it be Trey or Brock or I guess now Sam Darnold. But I expect Danny Gray to have a significant NFL career. I mean, he's not just a burner. There's all kinds of guys drafted every year who just run fast. This guy's not just that. He's a receiver. You know, and he's got good ball skills, and I think he's going to be a tremendous player. It just didn't happen for him. And I did an interview late in the year with Charvarius Ward, and we talked about all the receivers on the team, and he's like, he really likes Danny Gray. He's like, man, he'll eat up your cushion really fast with that speed. But as far as just feel, route running, nuance, stop and start, all the different things that go into becoming an elite wide receiver, all the things that make it difficult to cover a guy, he's still really raw. And that came out in that interview.
It seems like he's a split end on this team, an X receiver, which means that he's lined up on the line of scrimmage. And yeah, if you give him a cushion, he'll eat it up. But it seemed like last year, if you press him, you can kind of take him out of his route because he doesn't have that initial crossover like Brandon Ayuk, and he's not strong like Brandon Ayuk. So he's going to need to get stronger, to your point, to play that split end position. Otherwise, they're going to have to, put him in the slot or put him in motion, try to create a free release for him. But I thought down the stretch, he got one end around and picked up some yards and looked dynamic. And I kept thinking like, all right, next game he's going to get 2 touches, and they never did that. So I'm intrigued. And if Trey Lance ever gets to play, maybe he starts the first 2 games. I'm looking back at Danny Gray because I feel like they drafted him with Trey Lance in mind. And we saw Trey Lance hit him deep down the field in preseason, never got to go back to him. I want to see that one more time before one of these guys is moved off this team.
And if you talk to Shanahan about play calling, he would admit that Gray is a vitally important player because he takes the top off the defense. He makes he makes the defensive backs honor his deep speed.
But you got to throw it to him deep and connect once for people to really honor it.
And you know what? I'll say this, though. At the end of the year, when a lot of guys just are, if they're not getting reps from scrimmage, they're not going to bring as much intensity on special teams. He had didn't he have a play in the playoff game where he downed a ball inside the 5?
I believe he did.
Danny Gray, kept it rolling, but and he's told me, he said, man, when I get in the end zone, people are going to see I got a couple touchdown dances. So I like guys who are so confident that they've already got their dance planned. Now it's just a matter of getting him out there and seeing it.
It definitely seemed like he stayed locked in and didn't lose confidence despite getting buried, which is what happens to young guys on this team. So good for him. Corey Soto says, is this upcoming schedule the toughest since the Niners have become contenders? It's tough to really say what these teams are going to look like when we're in March, but it does look like just the travel alone is daunting. And I'm saying that as someone who has to do the travel. A lot of East Coast trips, Eastern time zone.
I haven't looked at it. Who's their schedule?
They got Pittsburgh on the road, Philly on the road, Cleveland, Minnesota. There's another one. Washington, Jacksonville. I mean, it's a lot of 6-hour flights for me, for Grant Cohn. Yeah.
That's tough too, that early time zone, that early window.
Yeah. So I'm sure the Niners will have a couple back-to-back. I think they requested, hey, if we have 2 games on the East Coast, could they be back-to-back? Hey, could they be early in the season too? Because it's like 100 degrees over here in Santa Clara. So I wouldn't be surprised if they started off in Philly and then stayed out there and played in Pittsburgh or something like that, vice versa. That would be one hell of a start.
They seem like they're connected to the league. I don't know if it's because of their stadium, but because of the heat, I know that they'd like to push for later in the year home games. But I mean, I think later in the year home games benefit you anyway.
Right. Or night games early on. But you'll see they kind of avoid those day games in September at Levi's. They have been. AceNong29 says, if we don't start Gray and pick up Renfro, is Lance out? Don't start Gray and pick up Renfro, is Lance out? Man, that's a lot. They haven't picked up Renfro yet. No. Lance isn't out. Benny says, bros, who is the longest tenured Niner now that Jimmy Ward is gone?
Armstead?
Armstead. It's got to be Armstead. 2015. Yeah, it's definitely Armstead. Fish and Chip says, not Gray. It should be all about Ray McLeod. Good point. Ray McLeod. Can we just go back in time to when Debo was out and Ray McLeod just sort of stepped into his role and killed it? Did a great job. That was,
Ray
I mean, that happened.
He could do more.
He could do more. He's super explosive. And frankly, I thought he was more explosive than Debo last year, who I thought had like a little backpack on his back all season, man. He had a little extra junk in the trunk last year. Sorry, can I say that?
I'll say this about Ray too. He's the kind of guy. Some guys are small and they know they're kind of small. He's like one of those guys that he's kind of small, but he kind of thinks he's the baddest guy on the field.
He does.
And there's no in shy away. There's no fear. The guy plays the game with no fear. No fear.
I've never seen someone that little run that hard.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. All right,
he was
last
a running
topic.
back I think running back either in high school or college. So he
plays like it.
Getting handed the ball on those, like I think you're talking about the Commanders game where Kyle ran him around the right edge. He got the corner at will like a Raheem Mostert and was gone.
Like Debo did 2 years ago and didn't really do last year. All of a sudden, Ray was shot out of a cannon. I was like, hold on. And Kyle even joked about it. He said that he was trying to motivate Debo and said that Ray was a better gadget player than him last year. Yeah! Yes, I agree, Kyle. You said it. You were right. Give him the ball. Give him the ball. What does he have to do? Go to Cabo to get the ball?
Yeah, they got to the edge for a massive gainer.
Never called it again.
Never went back.
I don't like that stuff. I don't like that. I feel like coaches, yeah, your job is to be really creative and catch people off guard. But if you find something that works that well, you owe it to the whole organization to call it one more time before you don't win the Super Bowl that year.
At least call it once.
Call it once. Kyle Shanahan's cat says,
"Does see that a lot."
Thank you, does Eddie DB have any say at the Niners these days? No.
Well, I mean,
unless Jed calls him up himself.
Say with Jed, if Eddie was unhappy about something, he could voice that to Jed. But as far as day-to-day say of the operation now.